So realistically speaking, I would have had a PowerPoint done by now, and so this is going to be a bit more of I suppose, an informal one in comparison to the video where all the editing took place through the PowerPoint. Um, since last time, I have removed well, effectively all the content from the game. If we look at that, there's no national icons, no national spirits, and in fact, if we go into these countries, which we might do in a minute, there will not be any content for them to reference, really. The game itself does present itself with approximately 3,000 errors upon startup, and then about 40 every hour, in-game hour, as it's still trying to reference things that I have yet to actually remove. But the game is stable in debug mode at least, and as you can see, portraits do actually exist of various leaders. Now, not all of them are of great quality. If we go to the Kingdom of Italy, I adore this portrait. Let's make it slightly bigger. I don't know what I was doing the day that I was able to colorize it so perfectly. I get the tones right. Loved it. Beautiful. We look over here to Douglas Hobb. This does not feel as inspired. And if we click on Yugoslavia, I mean, I did something wrong here. I mean, even the Portuguese one is not too great. Yeah. But there are quite a few that are doing good. And, I mean, having to recolorize 90 images of reasonable quality has also been a struggle, but I am happy that we got there. You might also notice, although I am clicking through it quite fast, all the flags. Now, some of these flags differ from the ones in base game. I don't trust Paradox, even with very easy flags to get right. I have also gone out of my way to find all the flags that I could and slap them in. Now, there are some mistakes. For example, I believe this crest should not be as squished as it is, and that's fine. These stars feel a little squished as well. I mean, that's an easy one. I just slapped the coat of arms on the Netherlands flag for that. This is too sharp of a triangle. So having to, I guess, there's still a bit of work to do, but for the most part, the flags are done, the portraits are done. You also notice that all the countries have the same political ideology, which is autocratism, but also the 10 ideologies appear in its little thing now, which is nice to see. You love to see this. And these are roughly the colors I'm going to use anyway. They seem to be different from each other, where my eyesight's good, so I can sort of see all 10 of them quite clearly, and I'm hoping that sort of is the case for when people play as well. You might also notice the country names. In a typical Hearts of Iron 4 game, France, where the French Republic would just be called France. For the most part, for every country except for 2, I have used their official name, as well as I could, at least. So, for example, the official name is the French Republic, the official name is German Reich, the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, Kingdoms, the republics of the Republic of the United States of Brazil is its official name, the Argentine Republic, the Peruvian Republic, Republic of, you get the Ethiopian Empire, you kind of get the point. So I've done that. I fixed it with the adjectives and descriptions as well of it, so the game will reference it as, I guess, the Kingdom of Italy, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, the British Raj. It's effectively just putting the word "the" before most things. And this is mostly important for capitulation events, where France has capitulated, and then in the description it says the French Republic, blah, blah, blah. But I've used the official name for both. Now, the only exceptions is the United Kingdom of Great Britain. The official name is, of course, the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. and also Yemen, which is the is it the Hashemite kingdom of Yemen? The text was very small. No, I'm thinking of Iraq. Let's go into the list. Is it the one that starts with M? Then it's ordered by this. Yemen. So at the bottom, the Mutawakalite kingdom. Having that text was very small, and so I've just called Yemen Yemen. I might change it back. Might just call it the kingdom of. We'll see. But yeah, I mean, even for little countries, the kingdom of Sikkim, I've just, of course, uh, used, and also the free city of Danzig. Uh, you're not going to be able to really read this text. It's so tiny. Where yeah, even zooming in, you can't read it. So might get shorted to Danzig. There's still a few things to touch here and there, I believe, but for the most part, nice things are happening. Um, when I opened up interesting countries as well, you might notice that, of course, things have been reorganized where it's Western Hemisphere to Eastern Hemisphere, organized by the countries. Um, and so you can click on whatever one you want and it takes you to it. Of course, the international dateline being this stem here, you can kind of see it in game. Now, I do want to talk about a few things here. So China is obviously a region that I will need to talk about, particularly since the only like officially recognized parts of China is really just the Republic of. Really, I mean, these are Japanese puppet states, although somewhat recognized. This is, I guess, the successor of previous Chinese stuff, and then there's the warlords, of course. Now, I don't like having countries have the same flag as each other. For example, this is not the flag that the Dutch East Indies used. I just slapped the coat of arms on the flag to make it different from, of course, Netherlands, which is just the same flag. So I've made it different on purpose because you want to be able to look at a flag, recognize it, and not see the name. If you can easily recognize it and what it's associated with, then that's great. Where if this is the same as I suppose Netherlands, you'd have to double check if it is the Netherlands you're at war with or the Dutch East Indies. For the most part, that doesn't really matter, as they're associated with each other. But I like things to be different. So the Republic of China has its Republic of China flag. Manchuria has its Manchuria flag. East Hebei has its flag. The Xinjiang Click has its flag that it officially used. The Chinese Soviet Republic also a flag that it used, and the Ma Click has a altered version of a flag that they did use. So these are mostly fine, but I do want to talk about the other ones real quick. Where Shaanxi is mostly associated with the Republic of China. I'm just giving it the Army of the Republic of China's flag, rather than other flags that have been associated with Shaanxi. It's really hard to find Shaanxi click flags. Everyone was basically using the Republic of China flag. Everyone was getting legitimacy, although some in other ways that weren't as Republican as others. But rather than using the Shaanxi click flag that looks like it is the Korean flag, I've just used the one that makes it look like the Chinese flag. Easy enough. The Fintian click, I've used a variant of the Five Races Under One Union flag. Fintian was a region here, got pushed back when Manchuria invaded, reorganized over here, and to some things that I've been, I guess, researching, is that it kind of exists in a meaningful capacity or semi-meaningful capacity here-ish. And so I've given it a flag that represents, I guess, the part of northern China that it's kind of from, which I would use with this, I would use with that, but I've given its own. The Sichuan click, this was a flag that was used against, a very similar flag was used when they were at war with the Zili, which don't exist in this game, but I have repurposed that symbol. Not that they ever used it, and in some sources, Sichuan is not as unified as I've kind of implied, where it's actually split into 4 parts. But I've given it a flag to represent the area, and we're just going to have to deal with that. Yunan's clicks flag, I used the red strip with the characteristic here is a flag that they did use. I just put blue on the side, called it a day. Very ahistorical, but I am pulling from, I guess, things that are associated there. And the new Guangxi click is a flag that would not be used for another 90 years, as the flag that appears is a flag that represents roughly, mostly the language of people in Guangxi and Guangdong. I've just recolored it so that it is it's the same blue as the Republic of China, just to make it feel it's the symbol is different enough to make it recognizable, but I didn't want to give it a radical color. In fact, this gray I think is the only different color, where everything else is a color from here, except for the blue, which is its own. I've worked with the same color palette, is what I'm trying to say. Now, Minjiang, of course, is represented by a demilitarized zone, which, of course, Minyang did not really exist in a meaningful capacity until 1939, but there were predecessors before what it became. The predecessors of what it was before 1939 existed in 1936 in May. So I've turned it into a demilitarized zone because banditry, war, whatever it is. And eventually that union would, I guess, be formed by Chinese influence, or perhaps Shaanxi influence. We'll see about that. That's mostly the rambling that I've had to get through. I do want to talk about, I guess, Switzerland and Asuya, which are the two countries that start the game with not a leader, but rather a representation of their leadership. Switzerland is an easy one to deal with. We know about Switzerland, which is, of course, that the Federal Council is made up of 7-ish people and controls the country equally. All those people involved are a part of, I guess, the same meaningful capacity. Officially, I've gone back and forth on a few ideas for Switzerland, and I think I have one that sticks, which I will not quite reveal right now, but having a mod where everyone disappears, if you have to think of the Federal Council as a collection of people, do all those people disappear, or just the person who is the president for the year? As every year they would elect someone on the council to be the president, but realistically, everyone still has the same amount of power. It's more just for aesthetics than anything else. So I have somewhat of an idea, and will be representing it with the Federal Council as per Swiss neutrality. For the Sultanate of Asuya, I have had to get a little creative, or rather, I've tried my best to find anyone who would be a replacement leader to Muhammad Yayo, who would vanish. Now, it's good that the Sultanate of Asuya is a monarchy, because that means his son is next in line. Perfect. His son is 14, so I can't quite do that. I need to wait till 1940 for a reasonable leader to appear in Asuya, so I've instead just did the thing you do. The government collapses. In fact, big negatives, because I started working on traits at the same time. Not everyone has traits, and eventually we're going to have everyone have traits. But I've just represented Asuya as a chaotic government. And it's in part, I'm playing off the fact that Ethiopia and Italy are at war as well. So having that, I can I feel as though I can get away with having Asuya have no leader while the war goes on, while they get pressured by either side to join the war, be a part of it or whatever. And depending on who wins might depend on Asuya's autonomy, independence, and potential leaders. But these are the only two countries that have a thing represent leadership rather than a leader. I do want to point out two other leaders that I do have, which is it Costa Rica? No, where are you? Yes. So, a lot of the work, or not a huge amount, but certainly part of the work that I have done in regards to uh, the mod, has been from resources from a year ago, a year and a half ago. I do not know where I got the image from for the leader of Guatemala. I remember it being a pain in the ass to find, um, and so it. And I'm not even. I don't think I was confident at the time that it was the guy. So this might not even be the right portrait for this leader here, Pedro. Um, and I would love to. I mostly want to bring that up just in case. Just to remind myself later to have another search and try and find it. A lot of the problems with people who would be next in line is that for countries that aren't really Western nations, there's not a lot of great information. And I'll segue this into Liberia, where I do have a portrait of a person. Now, unfortunately, this is James Scovine Smith's father. There is no photos, definitively no photos of James Smith by himself. I can't find any at all, and so I've just done something lazy, which is just use his father and hope no one will notice, because you can justify things with family. You know, people of the same family look the same, and so obviously the son looks like the father in this case. I'm hoping that means that I get to call it a day, because it is a pain in the ass to find a lot of this stuff, and it's even more annoying when the resources don't exist. So those were two that I also wanted to bring up. I am going to click New Zealand and do I guess a little bit of a test, right? Not a lot of the game. Well, I stripped quite a lot of the game down, right? There is. This is approximately what 3,000 errors. Yes. So the game itself does not like me at the moment. It has about 3,000 errors. Happens to the best of us. But if we just have this running while we talk, then we can notice that there are I guess no events popping up. New Zealand has no decisions. Well, I guess we have advisors. Some countries don't have advisors, but a lot of things are disappeared. We're also past January now. January 20th is when King George V dies, and so that event hasn't popped up. So of course, I have gotten rid of, I guess, enough content where the game can run and it does not reference itself, or rather, it can't reference itself, which is great. I've also dealt with the AI, and so because everyone is neutral, or I guess we can say the AI is rather primitive. That every country will have market access to me, and will barely interact with each other just naturally. Now, they don't have a lot to work with here. There's not a lot of decisions for them to click, if any at all. And of course, everyone's focus tree is just one focus, which I have taken from big total conversion mods that sort of represent, I guess, a world map. So everything can run, but of course it is just one focus for every single country, including the majors as well. The USSR has one focus, the German Reich has one focus. I guess you can guess the United Kingdom and France. Something else that I did do is, if we do click on some states, and I'm just going to mostly click on Africa just so that we can notice this together, is that you will notice that there is only there's no such thing as a foreign claim anymore. For the time being, I thought it was easier to just get rid of it all. So I don't need to worry about countries that don't exist at the start of the game, but do exist throughout the game. So, for example, this is Nigeria. There should be a foreign claim for Nigeria. There should be Eritrea, Somaliland, of course. Is this Djibouti? Dahomey is over here somewhere. There it is. Algeria. But everyone has state owners, and sort of if the way that I understand the code is that if you are a owner of a state, you automatically get cores on that if there are no other claims. And so there's no such thing as resistance in this. If you do play as New Zealand in this game, Samoa would have foreign claims. I believe I believe this is Fiji? Yeah, Fiji, which this doesn't get represented in the game, but during the war, the administration of Fiji was, I guess, given to New Zealand for the time being. Regardless, there would be a foreign claim for Fiji. But there is no claims, there's no cause outside of natural cause that are implied by the ownership of states, which just makes life better. If we open up factions, we just go here, there's also no factions, I got rid of them all. And historically speaking, when it comes to, I guess, like military alliances and the factions of World War II, the co-prosperity sphere did not exist in 1936, not at the start. The Axis did not exist in 1936, not at the start. It existed in 1939. Same with the Allies. The only faction that it represents in the real game that starts is the Comintern, which existed in 1920-ish, and how it existed was mostly just Lenin proclaiming the Communist International, but of course the puppet states of Tuva and Mongolia drew it into the Soviet sphere. So of course I'll need to re-add this faction here, as it is a very barren faction map at the moment. But factions will obviously arise as the game plays. You might also notice if I click on the United Kingdom, are they not doing they're not trading with me anymore? Cool. So the United Kingdom has no puppets. Same with the Netherlands. Same with, I guess, the Soviet Union. Same with Japan. There's no such things as puppets. I've just gotten rid of them for the time being just to deal with things. Does mean I have to re-add things, and I'm giving myself extra work to do. But methodically going through things does mean that I kind of understand sort of how things are behind the scenes in the code anyway. So I guess it is very good to give myself more work to do. But yeah, for the most part, this is, I guess, the mod. As barren as can be, as empty as can be, and of course, no national spirits, no national focuses, no puppets, no cores, just names, faces, and flags. Also, you might notice that, I guess, if we stay in China again, because it's always good to, this region was given to China when I programmed it. These regions, stops autosaving, these regions were taken away from China. This region used to be Chinese. I gave it to Tibet. It's very much heavily implied through things that I've done that Tibet is this size. It should have this state. I was going to work with like little tiny adjustments here and there, but then there was some conflict with strategic regions, and if there's conflicts with that, the map sometimes doesn't load. So for any reasonable, I guess, province switching in things outside of me making this, which of course has created some problems that I need to deal with later. This state needs to be named, but this is Sikyang, which used to be part of India, or rather, it's not a part of India, but will be. Of course, we can look at, I guess, Egypt and Danzig. So yeah, without repeating myself again, I believe we are doing pretty well here. Outside of actually giving national focuses to countries, giving puppet states and a few other things, this is roughly the stage of which someone making a Hearts of Iron 4 mod would then advertise to other players that, do you want to help, I guess, make this mod with me? I'm not going to do that here. for the most part, this is a pet project of mine that I want to work on as solo as possible. Um, um, in part, I feel as though I'm much more productive when I have complete creative control, which is something I'm certainly going to address much later. But um, having sort of the freedom to, I guess, go in any direction is great here. Now, I do have to give myself a plan for the next week. Um, Now, since portraits are done, with the exceptions of touching up perhaps a few that are slightly off, I would like to at least fill out the game a little. Now, the errors that I mostly get from this is the game trying to reference things that don't quite exist. Some military-industrial complexes, military-industrial organizations, are not being referenced correctly in some of the countries. These are problems that aren't going to crash the game. For the most part, the game doesn't crash. I mean, we've been running this for 2 years, and of course nothing is happening, which is great, because nothing happening means nothing's crashing. I would like to work, at least, on the major powers, which would be great to do, and I'll just take us back to the main screen to then go to, I guess, what the major powers are, to remind ourselves. Again, if this was a PowerPoint, I would easily show why what the major powers are, and I think I listed them as something differently than how it's now implied in game. So I also need to slightly address that. But I would like to. So I would like to deal with the major powers first. It's great in order to think of some countries and stuff with more importance than others, but of course, a World War II simulator is nothing without World War II. So these are the 8 countries that I want to at least focus on first. And when it comes to China, I don't just mean the nationalist China itself, but of course the warlord states as well, but heavy focus on the Republic of China. Because for the most part, sorry about that. For the most part, these 8 nations are the major powers of the world in 1936. China itself does, of course, become a large power, considering the situation that it emerges from. But I have some ideas of the direction that I would like to take some of these countries. I'm likely going to start with Germany, just to get it out of the way, and so ideally, so my plan is to give, I guess, national spirits to these 8 countries, and it doesn't necessarily need to be focused on the graphics of it yet. We'll get there when we get there. But I would like to have reasonable national spirits that are representative of these countries at the start of 1936. Perhaps some skeleton content or a minute playable amount for Germany's power struggle, because of course if Hitler dies, Rudolf Hess is legally his successor, but doesn't necessarily have the influence, right? I guess the more correct answer of who replaces Hitler is Heinrich Himmler and Hermann Göring, who are very influential. Hess not so influential, but will serve as a tool for those who are against the other 2 that were previously mentioned. And so it's a power struggle between 2 people wanting a throne and someone who really doesn't care. Because for the most part, Hess was a devout follower and loyal dog. So, so keeping the dog in the cage is a very, I guess, exciting task for the bureaucrats behind the scenes who are very much against a much more radical change in leadership. And so obviously I'm going to focus on Germany first. This might be ambitious, but sorry about that. This might be ambitious, but I would like to have at least the first 6 months done for not just these 8 countries that appear, but also some global events that do appear. For example, Spain has an election in May-ish, between February and May. And of course, we know about Spain in 1936, where there's a potential civil war. And so What happens around Spain? Does the civil war get avoided? Is it much more violent now that a leader has disappeared and the political, I guess, instability has increased? Does it get avoided? Can you avoid something that is just months away? And so I at least want to work on the first 6 months, a primary focus on Germany, and of course the major powers having reasonable national spirits, which is something that is easily achievable within a week. And setting myself a bit of a smaller goal might actually see much of this be done. So, apologies for, I suppose, a much more informal video, but there will certainly be a better PowerPoint in the near future. So I can't wait to see you all next week.